So welcome everyone to this IGEL Community webinar. I have no slides for you also. I must confess I forgot to put together my intro slides. I've been quite busy today. It's been a weird couple days for me, but that's okay. We don't need slides. This is a really easy, fun thing we do here with these meetups. This is sort of and I love when Matthias comes on with us too, because this is sort of an Ask Matthias Anything session. And of course we have Sebastian on as always with us. I can't do anything without him. He makes me look good. And so, real quick, we're going to talk about Disrupt recap. We had a bunch of great announcements last week. Matthias is going to go through a little bit of that, and then we'll get to Q&A. If you're not an IGEL community member, please join. Head over to www.igelcommunity.com. It's an amazing place, amazing folks. Last week, we just announced our awards program too. I want a big shout out to all the new insiders, the VIPs, and two fellows too, David Prowls and good old Seb here, which I totally freaked him out by warning him without telling him I was going to do it, which was, I must confess, very difficult. So on that note, let's get to this thing. So Matthias, would you like to just have a little bit of time to chat?
Sure. Add a last thing. If you have questions, just feel free to put them in the question and answer section and not in the chat. I mean, I will have an eye on the chat, but if you have something you want to share with the audience, you want to get asked by us for Matthias, just write in the question and answer section, which is in general at the bottom of your screen of your Zoom client. So just feel free, if you have questions, to put it in there. I will have a look on it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please ask questions. So this is as you ask anything, not us ask anything. And Seb is very good at reminding me about this, and he did it. I forgot because it's in my slides. Do not use the chat piece. We will probably miss it. Use the Q&A piece, and we'll make sure we get to it. It's right down there. So please do that. Thanks, Sebastian, for remembering that. Matthias, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
What was so special technically about Disrupt and what we've announced so far this year?
So probably let me share a side story first. I don't know whether you've all seen the keynote and whether you enjoyed the day on Disrupt. First of all, thanks for joining, and again, a big welcome to everybody. I'm really looking forward every time I have the opportunity to talk to Doug and Sebastian and answer your questions. I think the biggest thing that really kind of like hit me after the keynote was the fact that we didn't have a single slide. Can you imagine that, right? No slides today, no slides during kickoff, during the keynote.
So this is almost like a Disrupt, truly a continuation, no slides.
Right. So I just wanted to help you out with that. I think we did this on purpose, no slides today, right? Just to continue with that.
The gods are shining in my favor, I guess.
Absolutely. It also was the first time that we had the same event hold on the same day for two different time zones. And I was really happy that it worked out that well. And we had a lot of people joining, looking at the sessions and really also asking great questions. And wanted to see what's going on in EUC. It's not all about IGEL, it's about the ecosystem, the partners, the EUC vendors that we have in place. And it was, for me personally, a great show. Still, I'm missing to really attend those events in person and talk to you guys, and really have those chats at the bar or having some beers talking about technology, talking about EUC in general. I picked two of my favorite announcements during the Disrupt event. And first of all, this makes me personally very, very proud, is that we are now, we were always talking about any protocol, any device, and we now have really, with the Amazon partnership, we have all major protocols now in place to address virtualized desktops, virtualized application infrastructures to really move into a DaaS world. And talking about the Amazon piece, this was a huge effort that we took over the last year, working together with Amazon, integrating that client into IGEL OS, and really enabled us to provide the freedom to choose which protocol, which kind of like infrastructure works best for you. With 11.05, we have also introduced a couple of great technologies. We have improved WVD, as you probably have seen with the integration of virtual channel infrastructures, we now can add more technology partners, onboard them into the WVD ecosystem. We have Fabula Tech now supported to have USB redirection capabilities, which is a huge win for us, because USB devices, the redirection of those devices is still a key element for successfully virtualizing desktop infrastructures. Printing with eSIP, and also the ability that we now have Zoom redirection in place with WVD was a major milestone for us. And I'm really looking forward to have more partners over the year joining the WVD client architecture and help us to add more bandwidth in terms of the use cases that we can address. The other big announcement, and believe it or not, I didn't think that we will ever announce that we have a Raspberry Pi device in place, but it still also makes me very, very proud that we have now, with the relationship with N Computing and the ability to run on any Raspberry Pi 4 device, we have now extended our architectural bandwidth. And I always talk about why I think ARM is going to be the future on those endpoint devices, and that is a great start for us, working together with the N Computing guys, building a device or solution based on the N Computing device that allows for new use cases, aggressive pricing model, but also at the same time add the flexibility with the Workspace Edition license to go for the best device that fits your needs. Having Citrix also working with us on the integration and of Citrix Workspace app also helps us to improve the capabilities of that device. And I'm really looking forward, because I think the ARM architecture will take us further than we see that today, based on the abilities of ARM. And I just can repeat this. On those devices, ARM already is standard today. And I believe we will probably talk in 2 or 3 years where we see a huge uptake on ARM devices in general on the endpoints virtualized architectures. Those 2 things were my, the highlights from a technology point of view at Disrupt. And I would really like to hear what your highlights were and what questions you have around this. And yeah, looking forward to spend the rest of that hour to really answer your questions, have fun talking with Doug and Sebastian. I would love to talk to you directly, but they are not allowing me to open the mics for you guys, right?
I mean, we would be so happy, but it would be a mess, I guess.
It would be. I did we used to do webinars when I was Citrix, 20 years ago, and you open up the mics. We thought, it was so new, right? Let's just open up the mics so that everyone, and it was the biggest nightmare. And you always get that one guy like me that just keeps talking and talking and talking and talking, and yeah, it's best to field the questions. So I'll do the first question, and it was the first question I wanted to ask, and then you talked about it heavily, and you even said now the IGEL OS ARM OS. There's the naming convention, I must confess, confuses me. I do have it written down; it's a half a page.
Yeah.
But you said on any device. Well, right now we only support the N Computing device. So, the question is, on the Raspberry Pi platform, does IGEL have plans for supporting other Pi hardware beyond that? For example, in the question, actually, it was in chat, the Pine phone support, things like that.
In the end, that's a fair question, right? So the Raspberry Pi platform is just a perfect starting point for us, because it has a lot of, it has a huge Linux community around this. It already has a big driver support. There's like a lot of integrations available already today that allow us to have a device in place that can already address a lot of use cases. What we do see, and again, talking about ARM taking more and more market share in the future from my perspective, is that we will see other platforms coming up that also are leveraging Raspberry Pi. And I don't want to say again, like Apple, I'm an Apple fan, I admit, but the M1 processor, so I bought myself a MacBook Air with the M1 processor. I really like it. It's a good device. But you can see what I want to say with that, what the abilities and let's say the power of such a architecture can be. So I think the question is also why ARM and not x86 anymore. I think it's a question of choice and which use cases you want to address, right? If you really have a look on the benefits of ARM architectures in that regard, is that they have huge capabilities in encoding and decoding video, right? And that's, if you think about this, what is the driver for a good device in our deployment? It's encoding and decoding audio and video perfectly. The benefit here is that the price performance ratio to the architectural design of ARM is very often better, and it's just the right fit in terms of key technologies that are supported. So definitely stay tuned. I think we will see more devices coming up in the future. We are proud of the relationship and the partnership we have with N Computing. We think we can take this really far, but there will be other use cases coming up where other ARM architectures might also be an interesting angle. And I wouldn't limit this on how many ARM architectures do you add. It depends on the use case and the device classes that we will find out there in the future. And that is driving our ability. Now we have the bandwidth to do x86 and ARM, and with that we have widened the ecosystem of endpoint devices we can run on. So stay tuned.
Yeah, the fun fact is you already answered indirectly a few questions that came up exactly in that topic. Which kind of devices? When will we have other support for other devices? What are the plans for devices beyond the Raspberry Pi? So you catch about 3 questions in one answer. So that's perfect.
That's pretty efficient, right?
We're done. That was it.
There's one question from Tobias, which is quite interesting, I find, because there is, I guess, no real answer to that question, but maybe a few insight in your brain, maybe, Matthias. On ARM, what does make it so much better than x86 in your opinion?
I think I talked to this already in my last answer. It is that the key features that are needed to build a good endpoint device that is able to connect to a virtualized environment. So most of the compute is being done, processing is being done in the cloud or the data center. The huge benefit of the ARM device is that it is very good on encoding and decoding video streams, right? And again, from an architectural point of view, it has a better price performance ratio than most of the x86 devices or x86 chipsets out there. I don't want to say that x86 is bad, but for specific use cases where you have just displaying data and accessing data, those architectures are fine. Where I would choose x86 over ARM for now would be if you need a broad bandwidth of peripheral supports and stuff like this. Because this is where, if you have a look on the IGEL Ready ecosystem, we have a huge system that works on x86. So that's where I would draw the line. Say, okay, if I need to have a device that has a pretty big bandwidth and just needs to have redirection capabilities, unified communication in a very well-established setup, then I would go for an x86 device. On an ARM device, I would go if I really want to optimize the cost, and that's probably also the size of the device, and that's what I would go to.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Makes absolutely sense to me.
Perfect. Absolutely. And it comes down to those use cases too.
Correct.
Okay. The next question is, we've talked about the Pi. That was one of the big things that you mentioned that you were excited about with Disrupt. And the other thing was Amazon. And it's sort of funny, Matthias, I don't know if you know, when I joined IGEL, I wanted 2 things to happen. 1 for us to get Pi support, and 2 for us to get Amazon support. So now you guys have finally made my dreams come true. I'm pretty stoked about that.
All of this at one event. Wow. That must be a pretty shocking event for you, right?
It took 4 years, but I'm really happy about it. Really happy about it. So on the other side, the Amazon side, we have had Amazon support in the past. We deliver via a private build. We supported PC over IP. So what are the differences between what we were doing and now what we are doing, I guess? The old versus the new.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So we already, since quite some time, we have a PCOIP client integrated in IGEL OS, right? Which was already able to connect to Amazon Workspace's infrastructure. Now with the Amazon Workspace's client, we are using the PCOIP protocol, but it's fully integrated in the client in the sense of it's also the protocol cost is already being taken care of with Amazon, right? So it's a fully fledged, fully integrated solution that can connect to Amazon Workspaces. Whereas with the PCOIP client, you can also connect to Teradici's CAS platform, for instance, right? The Amazon client is built around the Amazon use case. That means also features that will get added to the Amazon stack from a server point of view, right, or from the deployment point of view. This will also be supported with the Amazon client that we have in place on IGEL OS. So it's optimized around the connectivity and the use case of an Amazon Workspace client. And that's what enables us to also move forward with adding fast features that are optimizing the user experience for the access to Amazon Workspaces. So that's the biggest difference.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Let's go through another question coming up from a community member last week when we asked for the first questions. I saw you are now supporting cloud installations on 607. Wasn't it the case before?
You're talking about UMS?
UMS and ICG, right. UMS and ICG, I should mention that.
So, good question. UMS, we always, UMS was and ICG were always running on virtualized infrastructure, because if you installed Linux on this, it didn't make any difference. What we have changed now is that we are also in our QA teams qualifying and testing that release on an Amazon or Azure deployment. And that's, from my point of view, the biggest difference. It was able to run before on that because it was just running on an operating system, whether that's virtualized or uses cloud infrastructure to run on, didn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference today. But we are qualifying it. And you will see that we also are continuously now working to simplify the deployment of UMS and ICG into those cloud deployments.
Okay, sounds amazing. Let's see. Doug, your turn.
Absolutely. So here's a question that came in, and please, if you guys have questions, throw them into the Q&A piece. We're looking forward to asking them. Let's see if we can stump them. This should be our goal. Is can we stump Matthias? Can we make him go, I don't know what to say? So anyone that does that gets a hoodie. They're talking about my hoodie, and if you can stump Matthias, you're in a hoodie. So okay, so you mentioned something about updates with Citrix. Can you summarize for me? Can you go, or not just summarize, go into great detail?
Yeah. So we started to talk about this already last year, where we said, okay, we want to have the ability to really have a day zero release with Citrix. What does this mean? On the day that Citrix releases a new workspace app client, we want to be, as IGEL, also able to release a new IGEL OS firmware that supports the latest Citrix workspace app. We have worked very closely with Citrix. We are proud that we already have a day 2 capability. So, in average, on the second day of a release from Citrix, we will have a IGEL OS firmware release out there. But there's much more to it, right? So we are also working in the background to optimize our QA processes to really interact with the Citrix team to make sure that also we have a very early testing and qualification stage in place. That allows us to optimize our OS and helps us to really squeeze the last bit of performance, or let's say user experience out of the devices. We are also working on multiple fronts in terms of engaging closer with Citrix. I cannot share a lot of details with you yet, but stay tuned. We try to support more analytics capabilities in the future and stuff like this. So this is also something where we are very closely engaging with the Citrix team.
Perfect. Then let me take over the next question coming from Giovanni. I really like the UMS web app. What are some features that are coming soon, or upcoming features you might share with us?
Yeah. So that's definitely something. I also love the UMS web app because it's a modern way to actually manage devices, and with every UMS release, we also currently releasing a new UMS web app. What we are trying to achieve in the course of time, we don't have a fixed timeline for this. We want to have a more often release of the UMS web app, so that we can improve the UI of the UMS more frequent than just with every single quarterly UMS release. What we are working on, the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, is that we can replace the traditional UMS console. So you will see more and more functions that you already can see in the traditional console being transformed. So we are also born to transform in R&D based on the disrupt theme. We are transforming this into a UMS web app driven capability. What does this mean, UMS web app driven? It's more focused around a modern UI concept. It's more streamlined in the sense of, we don't have a Swiss Army knife in place where you can do everything, but where we are also helping the admin teams to actually better use that functionality. So in the end, what we are focusing on in the web app is it's taking that functionality that you have in the console and really transform this into a user experience concept that is easier to consume. It's better to understand. It gives you more feedback and information on the actions that you take in the UMS console. And as I said, the goal is really that we can replace the console better sooner than later, because this is the way to move forward, and we get so much positive feedback from our customers and also, I guess, from the community on the console, that we see big value that we can add. It's just changing the UI and the concept that you can actually access the UMS.
I mean, I always remember the time was a UMS administrator, which was, let's say, the main configuration tool in former UMS versions. Mm-hmm. I already remember that, I don't know, maybe 80% of all functions that were installed there was already moving to the UMS console. So I'm now waiting for the next step and seeing all that stuff moving to the UMS web app. So, yeah, waiting for it.
Cool.
You got it, and that answered two questions also. One came in via chat and one was submitted via email. So hot topic, definitely. And within the community, these guys really love that web app. It's a pretty, it's easy, it's a great app. It just keep building it. I did hear, this is a question from me, Matthias. I came up with this right now. So I heard a rumor that the web app is actually being built with internal APIs. So we build an API and then we build the functionality into the UMS web app. One, is that the case? And two, will we see hopefully soon those APIs made public? We hear a lot of requests for better integrate APIs so that they can integrate into existing systems. They can script. They can write their own little apps, what have you. So one, I'll leave it at that. We want better APIs.
Absolutely, and we hear this quite often. And we understand that IMI is not enough, and we also didn't invest into IMI, so the IGEL management interface, as much as we wanted to do that originally. I think now the time has come that we need to start reinvesting into that. And if you have a look on also what we talked about during Disrupt in terms of the integration into the Workspace ONE infrastructure, right, where we are building a connection between the UMS and VMware Workspace ONE. There we also are talking only about APIs, right? So currently we are building those APIs. We are building that connection piece into it. And you will see that we will release more of those APIs also in the course of this year, probably in beginning of next year. The reason why we are still not publishing this is because the APIs still need to stabilize, right? So we need to learn how we can structure those APIs so they can last, right? So we already had some kind of good experience with IMI, but it was too complicated, too over-engineered, I would say, and we just want to make this fine. I didn't use German engineering, Doug, because you are smiling. Not like in that regard, but it's just give us the time. We just want to make it right, that this is something that really has a persistency and that you can use in the future. And in the end, if we are thinking beyond the traditional roadmap that we have today, we have to think in bigger concepts where the UMS as it is today will be a more service-driven architecture. I'm not using microservice because there are currently discussions whether microservices are the right technology anymore, whether we have to think in service concepts more or less, and those services also need to talk to each other. So there will be much more APIs that we will need to connect to. But this is something we talk about the future. It's not there yet, but I'm pretty sure we will have something for you guys to open up the API concepts and give you more abilities to interact with the management system. And in the end, think about the UMS in the future as a configuration service that you can connect to as a proxy into the IGEL world.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love it.
That would definitely make one person, which is unfortunately not there today, but Farkai, I'm definitely happy because he's creating all that IMI stuff. And hearing that would make him definitely happy. It was one of his questions a couple of times. And when will the IMI get more features? And it's true, I'm missing a few, not only a few, a lot of features there to make it really as a full-blown product. So I'm really excited to hear that we are working on it. Great.
In the end, honestly, we have to revamp that whole thing, right? And really the modernization in that regard. That's
great. Okay, that's really amazing. I mean, I wasn't aware of that, so it's really good that I attended this session.
It's APIs that we have inside, where we really have to think what APIs are we going to kind of like release and publish. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got it. Like Amazon's a great example. Everything Amazon does, they write the API first, and then they create the interface or the object or whatever. Everything must be API driven, or it's not done. And then they open that stuff up too. It's quite nice.
Just to give you an idea, the IMI interface is based on REST API, right? Which is good and it's still a valid standard. But I think it's also you have to think about how can I optimize the flow of data, the information, and how do I kind of like also use a messaging service. So MQTT, for instance, that's something that is an interesting technology. And that's something that you also need to think about when you say you're talking about new APIs, new concepts of making services interconnect. Just as a hint.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, okay. Give me a few things to consider this night when I cannot sleep. Coming back to something more technical and not about my nights. Question came in from Giovanni again. What are the plans with the Workspace Hub and the UDPI, how he's calling him, so the RX 420 from N Computing, support with that? I was working with this here recently and it was a little bit buggy, but I love the idea.
Mm-hmm. Very good question. So the way how, if you've probably seen the final release, the GA version, we still have marked the workspace hub function as experimental, exactly for that reason. I think it has a lot of like great capabilities, but this is the second generation of hub. So internally, a lot of the technology has changed, and we are still working on stabilizing this and getting this really to a state where we can say, okay, this is something that is production ready, if you want, right? So that's why it's still marked experimental. We have invested lots of time into the Citrix Workspace app, right? Because that's what people are using day in and day out. And we are now working also towards the Citrix Workspace hub functionality and polish it and really finalize this in that regard. Mm-hmm.
So we are staying in a stay tuned state, more or less. Okay.
Perfect. I'm looking forward to that myself. So it's neat technology, I think, and definitely has a use case, a very unique use case. So that said, cloud. So previously hosting UMS in Microsoft Azure SQL database was not supported. Has this changed? And then at the same time, I want to add to it, we added a ICG in Microsoft Azure Marketplace. Do we have plans to put UMS up there? Mm-hmm. What's our cloud strategy, so to speak?
That's right. So Milan, he won a T-shirt. So you owe him a T-shirt. I don't know about the Microsoft Azure SQL piece. Congratulations to Milan.
I have to write that down. He stumped him. Darn it! I gotta come up with another one of these shirts. I can make that happen. Yeah. It's already in the works. Writing it down.
That's a very good question. I think we need to take this offline, and I need to figure out what the status is on this. But in general, you're right. So you've seen that we have put the ICG architecture or the ICG piece as in the marketplace. And we definitely are focusing, and I was alluding to that before, we're focusing to simplify the deployment of UMS and ICG, which is probably mostly around automation, right, and unattended installation. But on the long term, we see that UMS needs to be a cloud native application, right? And that requires some time. And we see that there's a transition phase. First, we are enabling, let's call it the legacy application, the UMS as it is today, to better run in cloud infrastructures. And then as a second step, that we're coming up with something that enables the transition to have a cloud native approach. I was talking about this service-driven approach for the UMS. And that requires quite some time and some investment, because we don't want to have a revolution where we're doing something completely new. We are big believers in an evolution path where we are transitioning technology from what it is today to the cloud, that also enables our customers actually to transition their UMS into a cloud infrastructure over time. And that's one of the key principles that we are following, that we keep the investments that our customers took with UMS safe and enable them to transition this over to a cloud centric cloud-based UMS infrastructure in the future.
Perfect. Then let me just take over a question that I've seen and that I found pretty interesting, because it's even a question that I couldn't answer by myself in that case. We mentioned, or in that case, you mentioned a lot of private builds for 2021. So not you in person, Matthias, but in general, coming from the Disrupt and what we already have mentioned about upcoming features. Why not making them publicly available, at least in the Azure community? The reason why we are asking the kind of question, I guess, from the community side, is that we already publishing the private builds for the IGEL insiders, which is a small group of persons who went awarded 1 week before doing the disrupt, and they have access to that kind of resources, but they are not publicly available. So what is your thought on that?
Yeah, and that's a very valid and good question. So my answer to that is the private build mechanism as it is today was never considered to be used in this way, right? So it's a private builds pop up out of for customers or for the community out of the blue, right? So it's not like there's a schedule there that says tomorrow you get this and that. What we are currently working on, and that will kind of like change the way how you can consume private builds or how private builds will be used, is that we are moving to a more CI/CD driven development. That means continuous integration, continuous deployment. What exactly does this mean? We are planning to still stick to have quarterly releases, right? So the quarterly release is on a fixed date with all of the features from the last quarterly release to that one. In addition, we will have what we are calling rolling releases. So every 2 weeks, we release a new firmware that has all the features that are ready at that point. And ready means Q8, right? Put in the stable stream and that have passed our quality criteria. So that means that from a release cycle, we always have a stable branch of IGEL OS available that we can commit to, just both on the technical background. That will enable us to have every 2 weeks a new release. This release, this rolling release, we will publish, and that will get you access to the latest features that are available. So that's a big change for us. Unfortunately, I cannot give you a specific date yet, but 11.05 was kind of like the last release that we have built with that old principle. And we are now switching the development over to follow this CI/CD model. And 11.06 will already be based on that type of technology. Whether we can have the rolling release cycle already now in that run for the next quarterly release, we are very positive, but we don't have a fixed timeline on that yet. But that will completely change the way how you get access to the latest and greatest features.
That's awesome. I was expecting something big like that for OS 12, but not already in OS 11. So good to hear.
We are training.
So when do you think that we'll start seeing that rolling release?
Yeah. So as I said, somewhere now between 11.05 and 11.06, right? That requires a lot of changes in the backend system. That requires a lot of changes in the now source code tree management. The teams are working on this, but this will give us more, the ability to better plan for releases, to not have those ad hoc releases, because we think a bi-weekly release takes away all the pressure, because the cadence is high enough so that we can address those custom needs. But still, we will be able to address like security releases in between, right? And be able to release at any time security update and things like that.
Perfect. Okay, it's my turn. So you speak of automation and easy installation. Have you been working with Docker for the people that still want to stay on-prem? What do we know about Docker support?
Yeah, so this is something that we are looking into. Docker is definitely a technology that is interesting to us. I think if you say people that will still stay on-prem, we plan to have the on-prem capability available for a pretty long time. That's what I mean with this transition and securing the investment of customers, right? So you don't want to make a customer go into the cloud if he doesn't want to, right? So the way how we are building this is that we have a clear transition phase over to this. Docker, as I said, interesting technology. I cannot comment on any specific plans around this. We are looking into this, it's Docker, just from a technical perspective, Docker requires you to be pretty much stateless, right, in the way how you build the architecture, and the UMS, so the core UMS per se, is not stateless. So that's the challenge that we need to work on.
Great. David Prowse is asking an interesting question. When should we expect a firmware release based on the version 20.04 of Ubuntu?
Mm-hmm. So 20.04, and I'm always struggling with the name of those releases. Just let me look it up. 20 Ubuntu. This is live hacking. Ubuntu 20.04.
Should I sing something in the meantime? Some elevator music?
Oh, yeah, it's called Focal Fossa. That's what it's called. I like fossas, by the way. Have you ever watched Madagascar, the movie? I think those are the fossas. So, Focal Fossa. Yes, we are. I couldn't remember the fossa piece till now. I think I can always tie it to the Madagascar movie. I will never forget it again. We are working on Focal Fossa to be our new, let's say, or to renew the underlying, let's say, operating system infrastructure in the course of this year. Also, we don't have a fixed timeline. The reason why we are working on this is because and that's, by the way, also the reason why we are introducing this new CI/CD model, is that we need to be faster on switching kernels, right? Kernels, and especially today with new chipsets popping up here and there, we have, and our customers want to have the latest mobile devices or laptop devices supported. Let's say the Lenovo L14, for instance, is a very good example where we had to uplift our kernel from 5.6 to 5.9. And again, with the Focal Fossa, we will get access to a complete new kernel line that will enable us to even better address those modern chipsets architectures. So yes, that is something that we're looking into, and that is another LTS version that will carry us for on a long-term support stream from Ubuntu. It helps you and your customers, or if you're a customer, you as a customer, to really leverage the latest chipsets and get the best performance outcome. That's
maybe just, sorry for being rude and impolite, Doug, but may I just take over the next question, because it fits exactly in the discussion.
You got it. Go for it.
Because we have
it's not rude or impolite.
Which comes to the kernel question, and the question is, how difficult is it to integrate a new kernel? 11.05 was highly awaited because of it. I mean, for the chipset support, etc. So sorry, Doug, for being impolite, but that's really, it just fits perfectly here, I guess.
So how do I describe this best? So also the reason why we have changed to that CI/CD model is that a kernel change is a pretty significant and heavy lift for a Linux operating system. Why is that? Because you have also a lot of surrounding libraries and dependencies that need to be resolved, right? Also for us as a company that wants to run on any device, we still need to work a lot on testing, qualifying the new kernel, that it has the same functionality and the same support range as the previous kernel, right? So this is always heavy lifting and usually consumes a lot of resources. Now, if we stay in that normal quarterly release cycle and we say we want to have 5.9 ready with 11.05, we're putting a lot of pressure and resources to really meet a timeline for 11.05. Okay, so with the new model, we can work on kernels even in parallel, multiple kernels, to stabilize them and release them when they are ready, right? So with a feature release. So and this helps us to stay up to speed and in time with new chipsets, with new kernels that are required to support the latest what have you notebooks, right? And we see that this will be a huge benefit for our customers, that they get access to those latest chipsets and especially graphics cards, right? To get access to the latest AMD GPU drivers and stuff like this. So that's why we did those changes to that continuous deployment model, and we are heavily investing to make those heavy lifts more frequent and more structured, and make this for us less a heavy lift as we can streamline this more in our development works.
Cool. So that means at the moment it's quite complicated, but it will get easier in the future.
Yeah, that's our assumption.
No, shut up.
Since he took two, I'm going to take two, but actually it's not two to you. We had the question in the audience, are the Disrupt videos available online? And I believe they are now. Just head over to literally disrupteuc.com and you can actually log in. And Matthias, maybe you can explain more. You might know more than I do about this, but they're going to have a whole website dedicated to videos, to the videos from our different webinars. Matthias, can you explain it?
I think there's not much to add to this. So we are running on this. The Disrupt event was built on this vFairs platform. That's the this conference type of or style website, and there we are still hosting those videos. And if you have registered and if you have access to that platform, you can still watch the videos. How long? That would be another t-shirt for you, Doug. I don't know.
So I get a t-shirt. I get another one then.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
take another one.
But
I don't have to same shirt every day.
Videos there. They are still available. All the sessions. I think also the keynotes. So just go to the website and watch the videos there.
You bet. And I know we're working on an even better way to deploy that. I thought it was just announced, but maybe I'm mistaken. So I have to write down, order Doug another hoodie. Okay. So here's the question. Well, that was a good question too, to be honest with you. It was a great question. So I thought Disrupt was pretty good. A lot of great content there. And if you guys want, if there was something, here's a question to the audience. If there are topics that we missed at Disrupt, please let us know. These are the things, Sebastian and I can do this, or Seb can do it, and I can be your lovely host. So, but here's a question from the audience, Matthias. Are there going to be gosh, I have my glasses, I still can't see. Are there going to be an access control option added to the device options to configure ICG? I think he's just trying to stump you. I think he's trying to confuse you so he gets a free hoodie.
Yeah. I think I try to interpret that question, right? To try to figure out. So I think today what you have is to, as a credential to actually onboard a device to ICG is either a certificate that you can use. You can have a one-time password, right? Those are the only ways how you can identify devices that onboard. The question is, in the end, so can you leverage other technologies? And I hope that answers your question to onboard devices. Go away from, still this is a device-centric type of model because it is around onboarding a device with a one-time password and a very, let's say, really not really scalable model. So the way how we envision the future of onboarding devices into the IGEL management is that we will leverage more cloud identity providers to make sure you as a user can onboard a device, right? So you would tie it to your account, to your identity. So think about Azure Active Directory, for instance, or your Office 365 account. Most of the people do have an Office 365 account, right? So what if we could leverage that account and provision a role to that account that says you are allowed to onboard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 devices, right? And that's definitely something that we see up and coming, especially for the next gen version or next version of IGEL. We want to improve the overall onboarding experience, make it much more simple to onboard devices. And this needs to be a less device-centric approach, but more a user approach that enables a user to actually onboard a device and get this under management, and through that also get access to this. As a consequence out of that, you could also think about, hey, would be this type of single sign-on ability with those cloud vendors, cloud identity providers, also be used in my day-by-day work. So let's say I'm not only connecting to my virtual desktop, but I also have a SaaS app that I want to access from my browser. Yes, that's definitely something that we are looking at, to really have that simplified workflow, to abstract this identity provider piece as much as we can for you, and help you to have this, frictionless experience, whether you connect to your virtual desktop or you use a SaaS app, to make all of this streamlined and frictionless experience. I hope that answers the question.
I guess not, but the answer was good, by the way.
Very good.
It answers, I guess, other questions that we might have on the ICG configuration, and it goes a little bit into the, let's say, device trust direction, where you have a device and you have a periphery of that device and making it trustable or not. But the question that came from David was meant by another context, I guess. It's a little bit more concrete in that case. So if you go to the UMS and you have a device, you right-click on the device, and you can now send the ICG configuration, or you can remove the ICG configuration. And this specific menu isn't covered by the access list. The access control, sorry, my mistake.
Oh, okay, got it.
So it's just available for everyone. And this question came up, is there a plan? Is it something that might be just forgotten during the UMS, or do you know something about that?
I don't know whether this has been done on purpose, so that would be definitely great feedback into the development organization to really see how we can change this, because as it sounds to me, at least, this is something that should be also covered by the access control lists.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Then I would take over the next question, and it fits a little bit also in this onboarding process. And that's, in that case, really a feature that I'm looking forward since I was in the pre-sales. I will just call the question. I saw the pre-boot authentication is coming. Can you explain how it will work in general?
Yeah, definitely. So the pre-boot authentication piece, I start with the use case, right? So the use case behind pre-boot authentication is that a lot of companies, even though that we don't have productive data on the device, right? And productive data, I mean like Excel files or Word documents or whatsoever, they're concerned that, if the device gets lost, or, if you think about the UD Pocket, a small little thing, you can easily just forget in your pockets, and then it's gone. It's probably in the washing machine, or you just like, it's falling on the streets while you're outside. A lot of customers are concerned that if somebody gets hold of that device, that there will be a discussion around, hey, that company ABC is not able to have security policies in place to take care of their IT infrastructure. We hear this from very different customers. Now, how do we want to tackle this? So the way how this pre-boot authentication works is that the whole operating system is encrypted, right? We just have a very small piece, the things that you actually need to boot the system are unencrypted and allow you to boot up to a very specific stage. From where on, it requires you to add in credentials, right? It's kind of like personalizing the device, the UD Pocket, to you as a user. And then it decrypts. So until that stage, it looks just like an IGEL device. It gives you no hint whether this is a device from company A, B, C, or what have you. And that's the principal idea behind it. A fully encrypted system that stays, let's call it anonymous, until you type in credentials that authenticate you as a user or somebody that has the credentials to actually use that device, and then it unlocks the rest of the system and boots to that final to the desktop.
So no corporate identity, no boot splash, no custom wallpapers, etc. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Matthias, we really need to sort of close down. We only have a couple minutes left. So, I went online to see if I could find, I know Simon Townsend posted something about this new video site he's creating, and on his feed was the most amazing post It was a blog post from a gentleman named Helge Klein, if you know Helge from Citrix world. And it says the Microsoft Windows operating system talks to 291 hosts and 2,764 IP addresses on the internet.
Okay. Wow.
Is that crazy or is that crazy?
I didn't expect that.
That's why I brought it up. I was like, what? Huh?
Oh.
So
Wow.
Quite interesting. So so my question to you, for a free t-shirt for myself, how many do we talk to?
The minimum amount that is required.
42 is the correct answer.
42 is always the correct answer, but I think that would be still too big for IGEL, right? So I hope that answers your question. Do I now get a hoodie on this?
I'm sorry?
Do I now get a hoodie too?
You do so much for us. We'll make sure you get a hoodie too. I'm going to run out of my stock of hoodies.
Jeez.
You won in the first event. Matthias gets a hoodie too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But just in case for the audience, I mean, the question is coming back up sometimes, why is an IGEL OS speaking into servers on the internet? The IGEL OS itself doesn't. It's mostly related to some malware protection coming from the browsers that we integrate that can happen sometimes. I mean, there are steps to achieve that, to avoid that kind of communication. But in general, we can say at the moment, and I hope it will stay in the future too, we're not speaking to any kind of telemetric or whatever. So,
correct.
It's really interesting, and it really truly shows one of the security values or benefits, and every benefit of the IGEL operating system, right?
That's right.
291 hosts and 2,764 addresses. That's crazy.
That's huge.
So I'll actually post this article for you guys all to enjoy in the chat real quick. Grab it because we're almost done.
Not sure if I will enjoy it, but it will be interesting, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Matthias, you know what? We're a minute over now, so I'll just go ahead and give you the last word.
Yeah,
so if there's anything, thank you. We look forward to having you back in a few months. In once a quarter, right? So
right. That was my promise, and I keep my promises. No, I'm really looking forward every time to talk to you guys and indirectly also talk to the community. I really enjoy spending time with you guys, and I think it's very valuable to get your feedback, your questions. It also triggers thoughts and new ideas for me, and also shows that I will lose more shirts in the future, Doug, so I wouldn't make this promise anymore that Matthias can answer anything. But again, I appreciate all of your engagement. I hope you enjoyed Disrupt this year. Hopefully next year we can meet again and talk to each other in person. I would also love if you have such an event, a community event again in person, come to you and visit you and spend a beer at the bar with you guys. And again, thanks very much for listening in. And I hope I added some value to that conversation. And yeah, look forward for the next round of questions, and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are. Stay safe, stay healthy, and let's talk to you soon.
Thank you, Matthias. Same to you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthias, very much. And thank you all for watching this IGEL Meetup, Community Meetup. If you like this type of stuff, please let us know. And Matthias is always looking for feedback too. So if you have wishes, if you have something you don't like, email me, brown@igel.com, or post it within the IGEL community. We also have a new thing called the Feature Proposals Board. Yeah. So that's, Sebastian, what's the link to that? igel.node.io, is that right?
Yes, exactly. I would
talk about that. I think that's very much, we are looking into that, and look forward to your ideas and feature requests, or not feature request ideas that you have to put on that board, and get your valuable insights.
You got it. And let's just fill these guys full of great stuff. So with no further ado, I'll just ramble. So I need to call quick before I lose another shirt. So it's not my money, okay? So But it is a very sporty. I'll stand up so you guys can all see it. It's a very sporty IGEL Community Tree hoodie, and I look forward to giving these things out. So on that note, thank you all for attending this meetup. Matthias, thank you. Sebastian, I'm always in your debt. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.